Hello and welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about graphics cards, okay? Because I made a video yesterday talking about price and everybody, always complaining about AMD pricing and all of that. Well, today or like it's come out pretty recently that the specs for actually here I saved a picture of it. Let me just talk about these specs, okay? Because I was gonna put it up on the actual freaking thing right there, but I get a lot of like a lot of people come and confront me over like the whole Nvidia thing all the time since I've switched over to AMD, and I'm kind of being positive about AMD graphics cards, stuff like that. So I get a lot of not a lot of pushback, but most people are usually quiet, but I do get a certain amount of pushback, and it kind of makes me think, because I'm so new to PC, like, well, dude, am I giving people good information, stuff like that? Well, I believe I am. I believe I'm giving you pretty good information from a regular consumer just like you. I'm a regular consumer just like you. I buy my own stuff. I buy my stuff. I pay for it. I go through the same hype and the same like I have the same the same like emotions and everything that you guys have. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just a regular person that likes video games, and I like tech too. Like, I do like tech, but I don't have the time or the funding, to like run a YouTube channel like that to where I just test products all the time. And I wouldn't want to do that anyways, because I mainly want to play games. So I try to purchase the products that are going to help me get to where I want to be in my gaming. So we're going to go over the specs for Immortals of Averin. This game is coming out here in just a few days. This game is running on Unreal Engine 5. It is utilizing Nanite. It is utilizing Lumen. All of that kind of stuff. Now, these are the PC requirements for this game. And if anything has taught us anything, we're seeing Unreal Engine when it comes to the consoles at like 1080p if you want over 30 frames per second. So the specs for low. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody's already made videos about this, but this here just kind of ties in to my whole train of thought, and everybody that's always given me, yeah, man, the 3080 is a great card. This just ties into that and makes me appreciate my 7900 XT purchase even more. So, and there's good news in here for you AMD fellas that got 6800s and other things else too. So the low setting requirements for 1080p at 60 frames a second, AMD Radeon RX 5700 XT. That's an 8 gigabyte card, or an Nvidia GeForce RTX 2080 Super if you want 1080p at 60 frames a second. And that's pretty much equivalent, 2080 Super is definitely more powerful than, like the Series X and the Series or the PlayStation 5. So, right there, you're about 1080p at 60 frames a second with low settings. Low settings. So, you'll have a little bit more optimized experience for the consoles, because they'll be able to like play with things, do mix and match, and make certain things look a little bit better on the console. So it's not gonna look terrible, completely terrible on your consoles. But at 60 frames a second, you can pretty much be expecting 1080p. Like that, maybe upscaled, like 1080p, maybe it looks 1440p, something like that. So that's pretty much the expectations that I have for PS5 and Series X. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much that. So, but if you wanted to play it at 1440p at 60 frames a second, with like medium settings, you're looking at an AMD Radeon RX 6800 XT, 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and that was supposedly the card that was head-to-head with the 3080. Well, for the Nvidia side of this, you need an Nvidia GeForce RTX 3080 Ti, which is 12 gigabytes. The 3080 Ti, now let me tell you why this is messed up, because the 3080 Ti is pretty much a cut-down 3090. It's pretty much a cut-down 3090. Like, it's really close. The biggest difference is literally the VRAM. That is the biggest difference between a 3080 Ti and a 3090. So that's pretty drastic. Oh, and CPU wise, you're looking at a AMD Ryzen 5700X or Intel Core i7 12700K. Now that's just at medium settings at 1440p. At medium settings. So that there already pretty much negates the 3080 10 gig to pretty much a mixture of low medium settings possibly over there at the 1080p range. So that card is now essentially a 1080p 1440p 30 frames a second, 1440p low, just depending. Maybe you get low settings at 60 frames per second. That to me is pretty like, oh my gosh, man, like that was supposed to be a 4K card. That's what it was marketed at. But I mean, if you got a 6800 XT, it looks like you're going to be, 1440p 60 frames a second, and that probably cost you half of what a 3080 Ti did. Half. Remember that. Keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind. You half of that. I guarantee it, for the price you paid, if you got it at MSRP for 6800 XT, if you were to go out and buy the card to make that Ultra at 120 frames a second on the AMD side, you probably still would have spent less than a 3080 Ti or a 3090 or whatever. So for high settings at 60 frames a second at 4K, you need an AMD Radeon RX 7900 XT. I have that card, 20 gigs of VRAM, or an Nvidia GeForce RTX 4080. That's the specs of what these are calling for. And I know all the PC guys are going to be like, well, you shouldn't put too much into those specs. They've been pretty spot on when it comes to these games, have they not? They've been pretty spot on. For most of these games that have come out, they've been pretty spot on with the settings, with these recommendations. When they do like the little card like this, they've been pretty spot on. They've been pretty spot on. Maybe a little bit more tweaking and optimization. They've gotten them to run a little bit better on different cards and stuff and different stuff. But the AMD Ryzen 7 5700X, I have a 5800X, so I should more than be able to get 4K at 60 frames a second with my build for Immortals of Avron. And then if you want Ultra 4K at 120 frames a second, you're looking at a AMD RX or the 7900 XTX 24 gigs of VRAM, and then the Nvidia GeForce RTX 4090 24 gig. So my system is a little bit in between that, so I'm thinking that I'll probably be getting in like 75 to 80 frames a second, maybe at 4K. I think that's closer to where I'm going to be at with Immortals of Avron. Of course, these games are going to come out. They're going to have issues. They're going to have problems, whatever. They're going to need their optimization, day one patches, whatever. But we will be covering this, and we will be checking it out. I will be doing a benchmark on this. So another thing, actually, you know what? This includes upscaling set to quality for all of these settings. So you're going to have to use DLSS or FSR to hit these settings. So that pretty much makes the 3080, the 3060, or the 3080 10 gig, the 3070 Ti, the 3070, the 3060 Ti, well, the 3060 12 gig, you might actually be okay with, with that card. But pretty much all of Nvidia's stack, except for their high-end cards, are essentially, when it comes to UE5, and this is the reason I bring this up, guys. This is a first-person shooter. Normally, these games do really well with performance, and if these are the specs that we're getting, and these are what we can expect, that pretty much makes the whole 30 series mid-class or whatever, mid-tier and under. That pretty much negates that whole stack when it comes to they're pretty much as useless as they're pretty much as good as, not useless, they're pretty much as good as an Xbox Series X or a PS5. So technically, you probably should just get rid of your PC if you got a 3080 and you don't want to upgrade. and just go buy an Xbox or a PlayStation 5. I know, you guys are going to freak out at me. You don't know what you're talking about. You can do... Well, I mean, if they're giving you pretty much the same results as an Xbox or a PlayStation 5, yeah, that sucks that we spent all that money on these best Nvidia, and don't worry, I prepped a little bit for this one today. I watched a couple of them 3080 reviews from the time they came out, and I even watched the Richard Ledbetter one where he was talking about the 6800 XT and the 3080 and trying to give the 3080 like an edge up, like, oh, it's got some good ray tracing and stuff. And it's like, dude, that 3080 is gonna get its back blown out by a 6800 XT going forward. It'll run these games better because it's got more VRAM. It'll probably be more performant. The 3080 is gonna be stuck in I don't know where to go class, and that sucks, man. That sucks for everybody. Especially the people that always come here and, try to tell me that, like, oh, man, you don't know what you're talking about with the 3080. No, I saw the writing on the wall pretty quickly with that card. Like, immediately. When I was starting to struggle with VRAM at 1440p, like, I could tell immediately that card was going to fall by the wayside pretty quick. That whole stack is almost essentially, like, useless. You might as well seriously sell it before the hype wears off. And move on, If you got to run out and get a 4080, by all means, go get a 4080 because you're going to need it if you want to be able to play these games going forward on Unreal Engine 5 and some of these other new engines that are coming out. Like, I don't know what else to tell you, man. But you guys have got to get off my back when you come to me and you're being mean to me about it and trying to make me feel bad about talking about the 3080. No, man, like that card needs to be. Like, Nvidia kind of needs to be taken down a notch, dude. What they did to so many people with that 30 series, that sucks, man. That card came out at the beginning of this generation. At the beginning of this new console generation. When we knew we were going to start getting Unreal Engine 5 games on our new consoles. Not even our consoles are able to keep up with Unreal Engine 5. It's almost like I want to tell the developers, look, don't even make Unreal Engine 5 games right now. Like don't, because the consoles just can't handle it. It's too much, Everybody's went out there and bought their 4K OLEDs and all of this stuff, and man, it kind of sucks because there are people out there, and mostly on the internet, we get a lot of this, back and forth when it comes to like the consoles and the console wars and the 4K and all of this stuff. 4K is such an expensive premium to have, especially if you want PC or consoles. It is such it's expensive to feed that. Like, if we were still getting games built on Unreal Engine 4 and last gen tech and all of that stuff, these consoles would be awesome. These cards would be phenomenal. We wouldn't have a problem. But the tech is moving faster. It is moving. And I mean, it's always like that, I mean, like, the tech is always moving. It's always moving forward. But, like, right now, I kind of find us in an interesting situation because of 4K. If we were at 1440p or 1080p, this would not be a problem. It wouldn't even be a problem. We would be getting stunning visuals at 1080p and being able to run this stuff, like on our consoles, everything, if we had 1080p TVs. But if you want the HDR, if you want the freaking 120 FPS and all of that stuff, you got to get a 4K TV because nobody's making 1080p TVs with HDR support and, high refresh rate or anything like that. So at the end of the day, man, when it comes to these new Unreal Engine 5 games, I mean, Lords of the Fallen, that one's coming out. That one's going to be 1080p 60, 1440p 30 on the consoles. You can tell that game's going to probably be fairly heavy. I'm expecting, similar performance to Remnant 2. That's my expectation for Unreal Engine 5 on this card. I can get about 4K 30 to 40 frames a second on the 7900 XT with Remnant 2. I have seen it dip as low as like 25 frames a second at 4K. But these upscalers, they do work, and they are going to be relied on heavily this generation. Like, I can already tell you that. I mean, and then when the people come to me and they tell me, man, you should have bought, like, Nvidia is the best. Like seriously? If you put the 7900 XTX onto Cyberpunk 2077, that average frame rate for that game is about 25 frames a second. That's the average frame rate at native 4K with ultra settings with ray tracing enabled. About 25 frames a second. If you put it on a 4090, it's like 45 frames a second. Neither one of these titans can hit 60 frames a second without an upscaler. So when people tell me that, like, yeah, man, you should spend $700 more for a 4090, I'm like, you want me to pay $700 for 20 frames? For 20 frames. Think about this logically. 20 frames. When people are like, oh yeah, it's faster. No. Take it back to the rasterization. Forget about all the little fancy stuff. And look at what you're actually paying for. Look at the uptick from there. You're getting literally freaking 20 frames for $700 more, plus a bunch of magic. Now, I'm not saying the magic is bad. It definitely helps soften the $700 blow. But at the same time, man, you can get you can buy the 7900 XT, flip on the FSR or the XESS, be able to play that game for a lot less money. But if you want to keep paying for the name and you want to keep paying for everything, that's fine, man. I'm not here to stop you. But I'm not gonna say that AMD's trash when AMD is. I feel a lot better about this purchase, especially after seeing 6800 XT still in the thing for 1440p 60 frames a second on Immortals of Averin, and my 3080 10 gig is nowhere to be found. I mean, that card, wow, man. Like, I feel a lot better about this. And if I would have bought a 6800 XT, I probably would have still been okay. I probably wouldn't have been FOMOing like I was with that 3080 10 gig. That card's an absolute disaster. And I feel bad for anybody that would sit here and try to defend that. Like, there's no defending that. There's no defending that 3080 10 gig. There's no way to defend that. None whatsoever. If you and that's kind of why I'm going a lot more like heavily AMD, man. That's why I'm like, yeah, dude, I love AMD, man, because I do feel like the longevity of AMD. If you're a gamer and you've got a certain budget and you're trying to not fall into FOMO and stuff, I do think that AMD can deliver an experience that is going to wow you. I mean, ray tracing performance on some of these games I've played on the 7900 XT, I'm satisfied with that. I literally came into AMD thinking that I wasn't going to get ray tracing anymore. I literally came into AMD thinking that, like, ray tracing was over for me. Like I was willing to leave that on the table and move forward and just forget about it. But I'm getting really good performance. I can play these games. I can use the upscalers. I can still utilize ray tracing, and it looks just as good as it did on an Nvidia card. It looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not disappointed with the way things are looking. So, if you guys like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for watching.